I wasn't quite too sure what to do or say today, to be honest. So I put together a few things that I think hopefully sort of resonate with what's come up so far already today. There's a slight risk this is going to be like, now you've heard it already. I mean, they're really fantastic panels, and now a white middle-aged guy is going to tell it to you again. But hopefully this is more just kind of resonates with and reflects a little bit and adds on, I think, what we've kind of heard already today. So next one. So just briefly, the sort of film sector in Ireland. I think for the general public, perhaps the sort of the recent peak, the green wave you heard about already today, was kind of Cillian Murphy at the Oscars and Oppenheimer. And also just someone who's relatively new to the sector, kind of really seeing the genuine warmth and support for Cillian getting that role. It wasn't like, ah, feck you. It was like really, really genuine. Also, Poor Things, I think 11 nominations, 4 Academy Awards. And this is an Irish production company, like 2 lads from Dublin, basically, here at the Oscars. And I think within the sector then actually we continue then into Cannes and sort of articles like this in Variety. So it wasn't a blip, it wasn't an exception, it was a sense of a wave, something that's ongoing. Again, as someone relatively new to the sector, what's been kind of quite interesting to me is just how many both international films and TV shows are actually produced or co-produced here. And look again. Then there's also international television. You can go back one. Back one again. It's Irish television, international television, and also stuff that's not necessarily, go forward one, that's not necessarily made here, but the post-production and VFX are done here. That's the next slide. And again, kind of shows that I just assume like, well, that's America, that's Hollywood, that's somewhere else, that's certainly not here. It's actually, it is here. It's quite amazing. I think then if we even just looked at Irish talent beyond Irish productions, we'd see people like, this is Laura Livingston, who's currently a senior VFX person. Sorry, and when I looked at the screen, it moves on. Go back to one slide. So this is Laura, who's at Netflix, Richie Bainham, VFX, Avatar, and Emer Noon, composer on Warcraft. So if we look actually beyond just simply productions, which is what admittedly in Screen Ireland we tend to focus on, and just look at Irish talent, it's everywhere, and performing at a high and global level right across the world. So yes, now next slide. We're going to move, this is just a film, but we're going to move on from that. We're not going to show that. We're not going to show the film. Great. So we kind of heard already, so the film is basically lots of good stuff happening. And I think what's even more impressive is there's a whole new generation of that coming up. We heard from Kate, it's not necessarily easy. We heard that from Katie earlier on today. And I think the sort of the shadow side, the darker side of this, if you're on the outside of the sector, it looks like, oh my God, it's going fantastic. My mum asked me, was I a Cannes? That's what I got asked my friends. They think now I live a life of glamour and parties. This is not true. I've been to one, I think, since I started the role. For people who've been working in the sector, it's actually been quite a challenging start to the year. For crew, many people have been looking for work. For people who are working in production, really hard challenge to get things greenlit. It's changing now over the last few weeks, and hopefully we can kind of see more stuff coming down the road. But there are challenges to the sector. Plus the whole just creative path, as you heard already, it's not necessarily an easy one. So I think both of these elements are actually true. Which brings us to the next slide, which is this. I think today we've really heard a lot the theme of kind of journey and of choices and of maybe going off the main road to the road less traveled by. And I think often I've worked more with entrepreneurs and creatives, to be honest. It's not just even the road, it's like into the forest where there is no path. Next slide. I think within the film sector, it's kind of seen, I think as a lot of the creative sector is, it's kind of seen through the sort of the public roles, like the famous actor, the famous musician. But in reality, there's a multiplicity of roles involved in bringing anything creative into the world. When I came into the screen sector, the jobs that are sort of most in demand that I did not expect to hear were, anyone guessing? Accountant. Yeah, if you're an accountant, you got a job tomorrow. If you're an electrician, you got a job tomorrow. And also intimacy coordinator. As another key one as well. There's a real demand in all those areas at the moment in point in time. But I'd say pretty much, you heard Fran's point earlier on why people aren't moving around as much. I'd say pretty much whatever your skills and talents are within the creative sector, there's probably a role within the screen sector that kind of maps onto you, fits you. I was speaking to Sinead earlier on, we moved back from the Netherlands, and she spoke about storytelling, but in theatre, and that's different. But actually storytelling, we would say, is really at the heart of film. So there are obviously some differences of what people have done before, but there's a lot of commonalities as well. Next slide. Yeah, so these are just a little bit more formal than that, something called competency frameworks. We kind of broke down all the roles. So we actually, over 80 roles in crew, 80 roles in animation, and others being developed. So a huge multiplicity of roles, that are available within the sector. And if you're interested, you can have a look at these and learn more detail. Next one. Yeah, before I come to this. So Fran also spoke about, kind of not just technical skills, but I think the sector is really, I think your superpower is actually empathy. And that's something that I see at a much higher level than anything else, anywhere else I've worked, and it really cuts across everything. As an education, I used to call that a transversal or transferable skill, so even if you are in one area, you can kind of use what you have to move into something else. We saw the power of empathy earlier on today, particularly I think with Suzanne, and it's not just that we saw it, like we felt it. How often does that happen in our lives? Rarely, and in a day, and that's something that each one of you are bringing to the world all the time. So there are many, many strengths in this sector. This is from the song, the previous one, sorry, Wear Sunscreen. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, the benefits of sunscreen are, well defined by scientists. The rest of what I'm about to say is kind of the result of my own meandering experiences. So that's a bit of an introduction to the next part. So there's a few bits here that's just kind of solid advice and information, a few bits that are kind of me. You can take those bits or not as makes sense for you. A theme that seems to come up today is both starting and restarting. So maybe you're on the path you really want to be on, and that's brilliant. Maybe you're on it, but it's maybe time for a change. We heard earlier on Hannah kind of being on one journey within the screen sector and then making a change of direction into directing. So starting and restarting. There's a poem I like to share that sort of speaks to this by an Irish-American writer, English-American writer with Irish background, called David White. Yeah. The poem is as follows. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the thing close in, the step you don't want to take. Start with the ground you know, the pale ground beneath your feet, your own way to begin the conversation. Start with your own question. Give up on other people's questions. Don't let them smother something simple. Start right now. Take a small step you can call your own. Don't follow someone else's heroics. Be humble and focused. Start close in. Don't make mistake that other for your own. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the thing close in, the step that you don't want to take. And when I work with entrepreneurs, it's essentially, that sort of the fear, we heard it again from Sam and others as well, the leaning in, where that inner voice tells you, something needs to change. And however small that first step is, just to take it. You could be just looking at a website. It could be coming to a conference today. It could be reaching out to somebody else. But it's stepping into that. I'm not so sure. You're kind of getting nervous, but in the right kind of way. Next slide, please. Balance. This has come up today as well. Next slide, please, on that. For me, we heard today, I think, both the personal and the professional. What I was kind of sharing really here was, I think, the creative and entrepreneurial. So again, coming into this space, I think on average, people are kind of stronger on the creative, but really learning to tend to the entrepreneurial. This has to be a sustainable career for you as well. Some people say, is poverty built into your business plan? If I live in the attic and eat baked beans and do this and everyone does it for free, we can make it happen. And that can be a great way to start, but kind of setting an intention. We heard it again in, I think, Hannah, actually. She wanted to make money out of this. She actually wanted to have a career out of this. Kind of having an intention around that. And there's also a skill set. It's not necessarily easy, we heard with Katie, but you can develop the skills and supports that enable that, or hopefully enable that to happen. Yeah, learning. This is my background as an educator. I think learning is often heard as like study or exams, which I don't like. For me, learning is as much about exploring, growing, reflecting from experiences. Are we changed as a result of something? And I think as I get older, release. It's often harder, at least for me, to let go of it. When I was younger, it was all about getting information into the head. As I get older, it's about letting stuff go. Reactions, fears, kind of stuff that holds me back. My kind of fixed ways and my way of thinking. Becoming more open and more fluid. Kind of a letting go of identity. Of kind of, let go to let become. These are just some practical information. So the Screen Ireland supports a number of national talent academies, and we have lucky to have some of the team here today, Ronan and Lorraine. We have 3 national and 3 crew, so I can go back. Sorry, I know when I turn around, I have to partially just read the screen. We'll have a range of short courses and masterclasses, networking events, roadshows. They're both courses which are free and subsidised. Mentoring program, passport to production for new entrants, doing a short film and animation and film, and also shadowing opportunities. Next slide, please. Yes, this is one that might be particularly interesting, particularly people who are looking to move into the sector of any age. Passport production runs over 6 days, followed by a 3-week work placement. And really the focus is on helping you get set ready. How do you kind of navigate being on a set and let you sort of fit in? We also have a Pathways program, which was mentioned earlier. So if you have an additional challenge or an EDI challenge around getting into a production, that's a fund you can apply to get additional support. And this is, I just took this from the website, so I'd encourage you to go and look at the website. These are just the upcoming programs that are on to give you a sense of what's there. It's a wide diversity of things. And the Screen Ireland team also runs its own skills development program across these areas, about 50 a year, and again, mostly subsidised or free, at least at the moment. And again, these are just the ones that we have coming up. And we've kind of heard already, there's a whole range, if you just want to go back one, there's a whole range like this. Alison is an online, but now Irish, but also international online website with courses on everything that are free. There's Creative and Cultural SkillNet we've heard from earlier today, Creative Futures Academy, Creative Media Academy Ireland, and there's others as well. That's before we even get into the formal institutions. So we think we've been hearing like the amount of supports and training and resources that are there. It's not perfect, but it's certainly increased dramatically. So kind of avail of what's there. Next slide. Connect, I think we've heard this theme as well today. For me, the connecting is, there's a little bit of connecting in different ways. There's probably actually connecting with yourself, but I'll move on from that. I think this kind of connecting up, like who are the people you're following in their footpath, in their footsteps. Kind of try and connect to those. Connect out, who are your fellow travelers? Who are your peers? Who's on that journey with you? Connect out to look at your colleagues, like it takes a village. So you kind of need to know who are the people you want to work with and who want to work with you. So you kind of real sense of like, because it's you look at successful shows or events or results, it comes from a good team, rarely just one single individual. Ways to connect. Festivals. There's a million festivals, lots of them. This is the Galway Film Fleadh. There's lots more, I think, and I'm sure I've missed some out. I just tried to take some of the main ones that I'm aware of. But like really going to festivals and using it to what you want to get out of it. I was at the Galway Film Fleadh last year and talking with students, and they were like, how do I get internships? And I'm like, I've just spent my day in the industry talks, which is full of producers and people who hire, but no students there. So kind of don't be just going along. If you want to go to festival and enjoy the films, that's brilliant. But really think, what do you want to get out of this point in time? Where are the people who can give you a job? Go find them, go meet them, go talk with them. The guilds, we're really lucky in Ireland to have an extensive network of guilds across all the areas, both above and below the line. So Screen Guilds of Ireland, below the line, there are over 20 guilds in Ireland. And then above the line, composers, directors, producers, Writers Guild of Ireland. So we have now, you may not be, some will have different rules and eligibility requirements in terms of actually joining, but if you want to at least meet who are the people who are in this space, and it's Ireland, you probably know one of them already. If you don't, your mum does, or your sister does, or your brother does. And they will meet you for a cup of coffee, even 15 minutes to say, look, can you give me advice on such and such? We also have a crew and services database. It's not a panacea, but if you're trying to get into the sector, you can go on. It's like, kind of a bit like a Facebook for the sector. You can go in, add your information, and it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be the next step to stardom, but increasingly companies are beginning to use it to look for talent and for crew across their upcoming productions. If you do enter it, it might look a little bit like this. So me, 0 to 1 year experience, so I'm a new entrant. That's actually advantageous for various reasons, particularly if you want to get the tax incentive in Ireland. Productions need to have a certain number of new entrants, so sometimes people think starting off is a disadvantage. It can actually sometimes be an advantage in getting a job on a production. And then you can fill your profile here, and then people on productions who are looking for talent can review it. Then there's a whole range. I've been amazed coming into the sector just how many kind of support groups and organizations there are. It's Cross-Pollinator. Next slide. This is Women in Film and Television, the film Two Mothers, Raising Films. I think this is actually interesting. This is an event around job sharing. So it's kind of increasingly, how do you make the careers in the sector more sustainable? And job sharing isn't necessarily just for married women in accounts. Job sharing can actually be done intentionally across all roles in the sector. We're kind of early days here in Ireland, but it's kind of hopefully moving in that direction. This is a career event for younger people at the Young Irish Filmmakers. Story has a new event this year, Element Pictures. And this audience here today is ye, Mining Creative Minds, and of course Safe to Create behind that. So again, it's not what it was. There's a diversity and a plurality of supports available. How am I for time? Oh yeah, okay, great. Create. I was like, I put it in, and I only sent this on this morning, and I was like, I put in Create it sounds almost, it's not intended to be rude or sort of like tell creators to create. But I think we kind of heard that theme of, I think connecting to that part of you that gives you joy. The risk of it, sometimes it almost becomes the job, like you're so busy, it's all, the job of it gets in the way of the creation part of it. And the other part of it is also, is just a bit of a just do it. So the next slide, this is one of my favorite things I've seen since I came to the sector. This is the 48-hour kind of film hackathon organized by Ardon. And these aren't trying to get it onto TV or production or get money. This is like a team, they have 48 hours to put together a film. It's intensive, it's great crack. And there's just such an energy and passion. You kind of go like, this is why people get into this in the first place, I think. Another event I really saw, this is the Galway Fla, these are the pitching. This is a lady called Isabel Blanche. Gave a fantastic pitch. She's kind of moved on to other things in the UK. And the next lady is Janet Hawkins. Her story, she had been an accountant. She then owned and developed a bookstore. And now she's going into script writing. Like her own story was wonderful, let alone the story that she was presenting. But I think, you know, there's a real power just in stepping into it. I think energy kind of begets energy. And sometimes I think when you're not sure, the best thing to do is just to do. Not to overthink it. Because I'm sure all these going, oh, I did my pitch should have been better. My talk today should have been better. But there's a kind of a power now. People have seen them. You heard them, reacted to them. They've been exposed. People have, you know, they're beginning to develop that relationship with them. So kind of just about just stepping into the space and not worrying about it too much and not overthinking it and really kind of trusting to yourself. I think fundamentally we've heard that theme a few times, like, you know, be authentic. But yeah, be authentic. I think it's required. Get out of our own way and really kind of just let it land. Like, why am I here? What am I about? And let it come through you as much as anything else. And last, yes, the invitation by our I Mentor Dreamer. It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for. And if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. So I wish you all the best in finding and creating your heart's longing. And the next slide is a thank you and good luck. Oh, that shouldn't be there. And yeah, Screen Ireland, particularly in the screen sector, it's our job to serve you and to help you. We're here to help. And John and Ange are around as well. We're down the end. Only happy, and also Jess from the Screen Guilds and Groin, you think I'm safe to create. So we're here to help you, and we're happy to do so. Thank you very much.